Hi there, I'm Brooke Baldwin. You're watching CNN, and in just a few minutes, we will all be watching Washington dysfunction at its finest. The Senate is set to hold 2 test votes on proposals to end the shutdown that will, in reality, do nothing because they won't pass. Despite knowing that, though, before they vote, lawmakers admit there is no plan B. No backup scenario, no way out of this mess as of today. And that means hundreds of thousands of workers, like the ones right here on your screen, will miss their second paychecks tomorrow. How does the White House see it?
It is a little bit of pain, but it's going to be for the future of our country, and their children and their grandchildren and generations after them will thank them for their sacrifice right now.
Mr. Secretary, there are reports that there are some federal workers who are going to homeless shelters to get food.
Well, I know they are, and I don't really quite understand why. There's no real reason why they shouldn't be able to get a loan against it.
I've met with my individual staff members, and God bless them, they're working for free. They're volunteering, but they do it because they believe government service is honorable, and they believe in President Trump, and they're working as hard as ever.
Word of the wise, if you're a billionaire or even a millionaire, just don't say that or anything remotely like that, because you just don't get it. I have heard from federal workers across the country sleeping in cars, rationing asthma medicine for their kids, going to food pantries for the first time in their lives. These are men and women who are showing up to work, keeping us safe, and not seeing a penny. So to both sides, end this and end it now. CNN's Phil Mattingly is up on Capitol Hill for us. And so, Phil, talk to me about these votes that will be going nowhere.
Yeah, so Brooke, in about 30 minutes, you're going to see 2 Senate votes. One, obviously, is on the president's proposal, $5.7 billion for a border wall in exchange for what he says is a compromise. Temporary protections for DACA recipients, temporary protections for temporary protected status, but also some pretty significant changes related to Central American migrants when it comes to asylum, things that made it very clear to Democrats it was not a compromise. What we know right now is all of one Democrat plans to vote for that proposal, Joe Manchin. That means they will fall far short of the 60-vote threshold. The Democratic proposal, it is a clean extension, reopening the government until February 8th. We know 3 Republicans at this point in time plan on voting for that proposal. Democrats need 13. That is also likely to fall short. Brooke, what's most important right now, I think, is what's going to be what happens after the vote. We've talked about this a couple of times. Sometimes you need to see things fail for an opportunity to actually reach a deal to come to the forefront. After the vote, you're going to see as many as 15 senators, both Democrats and Republicans, take to the Senate floor, sources tell me, and start talking about that there needs to be a way out. We've talked repeatedly about behind the scenes. Senators in both parties are frustrated. House members very frustrated on the rank and file. They want this to end. They're just not totally sure how yet. The how has not been answered, but you're going to see the senators express that frustration on the floor, probably meet later today. The biggest question has stayed the same for 34 days. The dynamics are Democrats won't negotiate on border security until the government is reopened. The president won't reopen the government until he gets his border wall. If those stay the same, nothing changes overall. The question now is, can these new efforts and can this failure of these 2 votes here in about 30 minutes drive change to one or both of those dynamics, Brooke?
Looking forward to, how did you put it in your morning note, the okay, now what phase of all of this, which I'm sure we'll be discussing a little later on during the show. Phil, thank you so much. Phil Mattingly up on Capitol Hill. Listen, Speaker Pelosi, she accepted the dare, but President Trump is the one who blinked and had to admit there would be no State of the Union address until the shutdown ends. He tweeted late Wednesday, "I will do the address when the shutdown is over. I'm not looking for an alternative venue for the State of the Union address because there is no venue that can compete with the history, tradition, and importance of the House chamber." This is the speaker now reacting to Trump's concession.
The president accepted the fact that the State of the Union should be at a time, the State of the Union address should be at a time when we can talk about the State of the Union when government is not shut down. I'm glad we could get that off the table because I know it was a source of many questions. Should we rent the equipment for the State of the Union? Should we have our families come in? It is so unimportant in the lives of the American people in terms of especially those who are victims of the shutdown, hostages to the president's applause line in a campaign speech. Thank goodness we put that matter to rest and then we can get on to the subject at hand. Open up government so that we can negotiate how best to protect our borders.
Abby Phillip is our White House correspondent there today. And so, Abby, just jogging back to the Trump tweet, my goodness, that was mighty polite and quick, not in the president's nature.
Very uncharacteristic of President Trump. This fight between the two of them over the State of the Union had been likened to something of a proxy war over this government shutdown. It's once again Pelosi and Trump looking at each other square in the face and seeing who would blink first. It turns out President Trump was the one to do that. Now, the reasoning might have something to do with what he hinted at in his tweet last night announcing this, the history and the grandeur, the splendor of that House chamber, that according to our sources, the president wanted to deliver the speech there. He did not want to be the first president in many years to not deliver his State of the Union address at the Capitol. So he decided to let Nancy Pelosi have this one. Now, what does this mean for the government shutdown? There are some who might think that this could signal an opening for a potential thaw. So far, we actually haven't seen that at all. However, what we are hearing now from White House sources is that they are considering perhaps having yet another meeting here at the White House between the Republicans and the Democrats in the House and in the Senate over the shutdown issue as early as tomorrow. Now, Nancy Pelosi and President Trump have not spoken in real life, except on Twitter and through these speeches, in over 2 weeks, since the president stormed out of a Situation Room meeting here at the White House more than 2 weeks ago. So if this meeting does in fact happen tomorrow, it would be the first opportunity for them to sit down face to face yet again over the shutdown. But frankly, we don't really have a sense from either side here what the compromise might look like, what it could be. But President Trump is clearly conceding to Nancy Pelosi that something like the State of the Union, perhaps all the pomp and circumstance that comes with it, needs to be postponed until people are getting paid again. The real question now is, when will that be? And will it be any time in the near future, considering that they aren't speaking right now? Brooke?
Except over Twitter, as you so astutely pointed out. Abby Phillip at the White House. Abby, thank you. So President Trump, he gives Speaker Pelosi a win, and now a group of House Democrats are actually hoping she will return the favor, sort of. 30 of them signing their names to this letter asking her to offer the president a vote on funding for border security if he agrees to open the government. And one of those Democrats is Congresswoman Jennifer Wexton from Virginia. Congresswoman Wexton, a pleasure to have you on. Welcome.
Thank you, Brooke.
So let's just start with this letter. What are you asking Speaker Pelosi to do?
We're asking her to go to the president and suggest that should he reopen the government, that we will agree to debate and put forward the funding that he's asking about, that we will have a full and fair debate and a hearing on it, give folks from DHS an opportunity to come in and justify why these funds are needed, and allow everybody to call witnesses, have testimony, kind of the regular order as we're supposed to be having here in Congress.
So, just so I'm hearing you right, so if the promise is there, the guarantee to reopen government, would you be willing to compromise and approve the $5+ billion that Trump wants for some kind of barrier or wall?
I would be willing to listen, to debate, to hear from the experts about what kind of barriers are needed and where, about what other measures could be used more efficiently and effectively to combat the transport of, and the entry of illegal contraband and drugs into our country.
Would you be open to the $5 billion, or is this your way of just saying to President Trump, listen, we'll listen to you, just open the government?
I'm always willing to listen, but what I want to...
What about the $5 billion? What about the $5 billion?
What has been missing from this discussion is any justification of why those funds are needed and why they're the best way to deal with this problem. I don't think anybody is looking to waste taxpayers' money and further, damage our country in the interim.
You have 30 people, including yourself, who signed on to this letter. But is this something that might be catching on in the Democratic caucus? Do you think even more Democrats would be willing to listen, as you're explaining to me?
I think we all want to get back to having a full and fair discussion, to debating the issues that are before us, to getting back to regular order. That's something that's been missing. It's kind of time to get this whole debate and the whole crafting of legislation to come from the bottom up instead of the top down.
But you can understand if you're the White House and you're listening to this interview right now and they're hearing, you, a Democrat, saying, okay, we'll listen. There's a big difference between, okay, we'll listen, and okay, we'll give you some money for your wall. Do you understand why that then hasn't been good enough for them and why we're still on this mess.
But what we need to know is, why is this the best way to spend the people's money? How is this the most effective and efficient way to stop drugs and contraband from coming into our country?